A severe back injury against The Undertaker at the 1998 Royal Rumble seemed to spell the end for Shawn Michaels' career. The match took a disastrous turn for Michaels when he awkwardly landed on a casket, which resulted in several crushed discs in his back. The months following the injury were dark times for Michaels. The physical pain from the injury was made worse by his personal issues, leading to him abusing painkillers. But despite this, Michaels showed up at WrestleMania 14 and battled through the pain in the main event against Steve Austin. It seemed that this was the end of the line for HBK. The injury was so bad that he needed lower back fusion surgery. He took the advice of doctors and retired immediately. The WWF attempted to keep Michaels involved in the business as an on-screen personality. They tried utilising him in various roles such as commentator and then as the commissioner, but it was no use. Michaels just ended up feeling frustrated at not being able to wrestle, and it was clear to his colleagues backstage that he was battling a huge amount of personal demons. Michaels had descended into a haze of drug use and depression, which marked one of the lowest points in his life. He even managed to alienate his best friend, Triple H. In an interview, he said, "In walks Shawn, just gone, stumbling all over the place. He's half drooling on himself. Everybody was like, 'What's going on?' They all came to me like I was his keeper. They all went to Vince. Vince wanted to talk to him. They had to go and wake him up. He was passed out underneath a table in the locker room. At that point, we were going to do something with Shawn, and Vince just said, 'Forget it. I don't want to do anything with him. Shawn won't go to rehab. There's nothing I can do with this guy.' So the next day, Vince made the determination that that was it. Send him home. Michaels ended up lashing out at his best friend and almost destroyed their friendship by alienating him. So when Vince got done talking, I walked into the locker room and Shawn just went off. We got into a huge fight in front of everybody about how I'm supposed to be his friend, and I didn't go to bat for him. I stuck the knife in his back. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for the best friend trying to help his buddy. And that was it. We didn't speak for a long time. And so Michaels went home to San Antonio in Texas. It was here that he underwent a personal transformation. He became a born-again Christian, which totally altered the way he approached the world and those around him. He managed to rid himself of his demons thanks to his faith and his new family, and focused his attention on nurturing new wrestling talent by opening his own wrestling school. Among the alumni of the Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy were Lance Cade, Brian Kendrick and Bryan Danielson. By 2002, Shawn Michaels was clean and sober, and by some miracle he'd physically recovered to a point where he felt ready to consider a return to wrestling. Kevin Nash made the suggestion to Michaels that he should apologise to Triple H for his past behaviour. This led to an emotional phone call between the two men. It was the first time they'd spoken to each other in 2 years. Bruce Prichard visited Michaels in San Antonio around the same time. I would travel to Texas to go to Shawn's wrestling school and be around him in a totally different light. I saw Shawn, I saw Michael Hickenbottom, I saw a different guy who was having fun, who loved the business and wanted to give back. Vince McMahon and Jim Ross sat down with Michaels to talk about a possible return. They not only addressed his past behaviours, but also offered him a chance to rewrite the final chapter of his wrestling career. JR argued that Michaels had a responsibility to his legacy and the wrestling industry to make a meaningful comeback. The discussion between Michaels, McMahon and JR laid the groundwork for what would become one of the most remarkable comebacks in wrestling history. Shawn Michaels made his return to WWE in June 2002. Kevin Nash unveiled HBK as the newest member of the NWO. He was the only member of the faction that had never appeared in WCW, but his role in the group wouldn't last for long. The storyline took an unexpected turn when Kevin Nash suffered a quad injury during a match. The injury not only put Nash out of action, but also put an end to the NWO as a whole, as Vince McMahon decided to disband the faction a few days later, and for good reason, because it was a terrible version of the New World Order, and Michaels deserved better for his return to the company. The storyline focus changed to Triple H's decision between the Raw and SmackDown brands. There was intrigue as to which roster he was going to sign for. And so HBK made an appeal to Triple H to join him on the Raw brand, and it briefly looked like DX were back together for the first time in over 4 years. But things took a sharp turn when Triple H was revealed to have attacked Michaels backstage. In a promo, Triple H justified his actions. This set up HBK's return match for SummerSlam in August. It will be Michaels versus Triple H in an unsanctioned street fight. In reality, the decision to frame the match as a street fight was a smart one, because it allowed them to use certain shortcuts during the match, like the use of weapons, to mask any limitations that Michaels might have had in the ring after taking 4 years out. Leading up to the match, the storyline tapped in to the real emotions and history between Michaels and Triple H. They did a great job of building this one up. When the street fight at SummerSlam unfolded, it defied all expectations. The match itself was absolutely thrilling, a 28-minute barn burner, and Michaels immediately proved that he hadn't lost a single step in those 4 years away. Following his comeback, Michaels continued to deliver standout performances, including winning the World Heavyweight Championship at the Survivor Series in November 2002 after a grueling Elimination Chamber match. By the middle of 2003, it was obvious that this was the greatest comeback in wrestling history, and his feud and matches with Chris Jericho made fans grateful for it. The 5-star classic between the men at WrestleMania 19 was a scorcher of a match. It was a feud that we would never have been blessed to witness if HBK had stayed retired, and many of his peers backstage reported that Michaels' demeanour had completely changed to how he was in the 90s, and that was a nice surprise for them. But that old defiant attitude sometimes popped back up. Hulk Hogan found that out the hard way in 2005 when he was programmed to face Michaels at SummerSlam. It was one of those dream matches that just made sense. Both men had been kept apart in the 90s when Hogan was making WCW his personal playground, but now they were both together in WWE. And they were both enjoying a career resurgence. The fans had been red hot for the second coming of Hulkamania, and just like HBK, he'd lost none of his charisma. But unlike Michaels, Hogan still seemed to carry some of the negative traits that made him notorious in the 1990s. His propensity towards politicking being the most notable. The original plan was for the men to have a series of 3 matches, with Michaels winning the first match and Hogan winning the other 2. This was on the suggestion of Michaels himself, who was more than happy to do 2 jobs for the Hulkster. But the story goes that Hogan preferred the idea of winning all 3 matches in the series and was particularly unhappy with the idea of losing clean to Michaels in the first match. Michaels was understandably furious at Hogan for his petulance. In an interview, he said, "We were going to do a best of 3, and in the last minute, Hogan backed out. So that day, and I will admit this, I poked the bear all day. I already knew what I was going to do. I was going to go out there and do business, but I was going to make him earn it, just to be a pain in the butt all day, and that was something I did, just for my own enjoyment." On the night, Michaels made Hogan look like an idiot. He oversold all of his offense, bumping around the ring like a maniac in a very unrealistic fashion. But ultimately, he also had to lose the match to him. It had now been 3 years since his triumphant comeback, and Michaels didn't slow down. in the years after. He gave us the cheesy but fun DX reunion, that incredible Ric Flair retirement match, and a couple of matches with The Undertaker that was some of the best in WrestleMania history. Although, let's just ignore that 2018 return match between DX and the Brothers of Destruction. I like to pretend that that match never happened. All in all, HBK's return couldn't have gone much better. It was truly a triumphant return that surpassed all expectations, and it gave us another 8 years of the greatest WWE superstar of all time.